Okay, so we are going to continue talking about this idea of classes and objects and just learning how to program using these classes and objects. So I just want to point out that so far up until this point in class, we've been using methods where we like break the tasks into small tasks and complete each one. But what the object approach is going to do is we're going to create like our own variable types, like a person, or I'm going to do one with a triangle here in a second, and then use that object to display and modify the information. So like before we might have a method or a program that is the area of a triangle, but what we're going to do with the object approach is we're going to make our own variable type called triangle, okay, and then we're going to make some triangles and call it get area method that gives you the area of that triangle. All right, so you could also, I think we did a program actually in chapter 5 where we counted the number of words in a sentence. But the object approach to this would be instead of having a method that does that, right, we would actually make a sentence like sentence.java that represents a sentence. And then it would have a method that says get number of words. So we'd populate it with some data, which would be all the words in a sentence. And then we would have a method to get you information about that sentence, like get number of words. Okay, and we've already used objects before, right? We've used scanners as an object, but we've never created our own we've never created our own custom object, right? And that's what we're going to do. Scanner is one that somebody else created and we use by creating the new scanner or whatever, and then call the dot methods. But we're going to make our own variable types. Okay, and I'm going to start with this triangle. Okay, so I loaded up. Here's how you do it with methods, right? You would have like a base and height, and then you would pass it into the method, and it would calculate the area, right? So here's the variables coming in, and we calculate that area, and then we return it back to main, right? And then we could call it again for like another triangle, right? This is a different way to call it, slightly different, where you just pass in 6 and 10 immediately and then get the area back that way. Okay, so we're going to do this with a different approach using the classes and objects. All right, and we're actually going to need two different files. The first one we're going to make is just called triangle.java, which represents a triangle. Okay, so if you want to do this with me, you can. Basically, just do a new class. Okay, and I'm going to call it triangle, right? Just triangle, and it's actually not going to have a main anymore, right? And we'll talk more about that later, but for now, we're not going to have a main. Okay, so what we are going to do is basically we're going to create the data first, which again, that's called instance variables. Okay, and so basically we got to think of like what properties do triangles have, right? And there's a lot here. You could do like, is it obtuse, acute, or right, or whatever. But for us, we're just going to do, if you think back to this, right, the data we really need for area is just base and height. Okay, so I'm going to type double base and double height. Okay, and again, this is where it starts to get a little different. Is right now we think of this in terms of classes and objects. This is the triangle class. Okay, and it's kind of like a blueprint for what data and methods do we want a triangle to have. We are not going to populate it with any specific base or height because we want this to represent all possible triangles. It's just like a blueprint for making a triangle. All right, so I think that's kind of confusing, but because students want to put like 5 and say 12 here or something, but that would mean we can only make triangles that have base of 5 and height of 12. Okay, so we don't want to give them any values here. We're just going to declare what we want like that. Okay, and then we're going to make a get area method, right? And so it's actually going to be very, very similar to this get area method. Let's see, I guess we don't need static anymore. So that's one of the differences is when we start to do these, sorry, I'll make this bigger so you can see the code a little better. When we start to do these objects, your methods don't have to have this static modifier. And we'll talk more about that actually in this chapter. But for now, I'm going to basically do the same type of method, except I don't need to pass these in, right? These are actually stored already in this triangle class. So I'm going to do like public And I'm not going to do static this time. I'm just going to do public, and then I want to return a double, and I'm going to call it get the area. Okay. And again, I don't need to pass in the base and height because they're in the class. They're class variables. Instance variables are also sometimes called like class variables. No, I shouldn't say that. Nope, I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to call them instance variables. Class variable is actually something else. But anyways, I have access to them anywhere besides inside of these curly braces. So I have access to them here. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to have it return my double, which is just base times height times 1/2. All right, and so that is that's it. That is how that's my method for getting area. Okay, and so what's weird is, again, you don't actually set the base and height here because this is a blueprint of what any triangle could be, right? So we know any triangle will have a base, have a height, and have a way to get its area, but we're going to go to like another program and actually create the triangles. All right, so this is the basic class definition. I'll put this as the method. So like what text this, what our triangle can do. And it's also kind of how we access the data. Okay, so to actually make triangles, we're going to make them in another. You could make them in here. You could add a main to this and make them, but we're going to make them in a second one, which I usually call like a runner class. So if you want to do file, new class again, and I'm just going to call it like triangle runner. Okay, and then this one will need a main. So I'm going to click create the main for me. Okay, so now I'm inside of this class called triangle runner. All right, and so I want to make some triangles. All right, so basically what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to type triangle 1. So again, I'm making a variable just like I do, say like int x equals 7. I'm doing the same thing here, right? Except I'm making a reference type, an object, triangle 1, and I'm going to set it equal to new triangle. So I'm basically making a new triangle called triangle 1. Right? And when you start to create these objects, that's how you do it again. You have the new keyword and then the name of the class again. And later we might have like input parameters, but for now we're just creating it like that. Okay, and so I've got to give it a base and height. All right, so remember these are not specified, right, at all here. So I'm just going to do like a triangle 1 dot base equals whatever I want, so 10. Right, because we're going to use these dot stuff. So then I'm going to do triangle 1 dot height. Okay, so I'm going to set the height to be 6. Okay, so I can access all the methods and variables by just doing the dot. So I do dot base dot height. Delete this because I don't really need it anymore. Okay, and then if I want to get the area, right? So basically get area is a method like we did in chapter 5 that returns a double. So I'm going to call the triangle I want to get the area for. So I'm going to call triangle 1 dot get area. Okay, and then I can print that out or I can store it. So I'm just going to make a double area 1. Okay, and then I could like sys out print area 1. Right, so that should be my area of 30. Okay, so once you have defined it as a class, right, I've defined its variables and methods, then I can start to create, these are called objects or instances. This is a triangle object, which is also called an instance of the class, right? So now it actually has the data. These objects, the triangle class is the blueprint. This is an actual physical triangle with a base and a height. Okay, and you can do whatever you want, right? You can like, if I want to print out its base, I could just do triangle 1 dot base, and boom, you'd print it out. right? And that would just print out the base number. Okay, and once you have the blueprint, you can make as many triangles as you want, right? So maybe I'll make another triangle object or instance. I'll do a little more space. So I'll do it the same way, okay, but I'm just going to give it a different name. So I'm going to call this one triangle 2. Very creative, I know, right? But then I would have to specify its base and height because each triangle will have a different base and height. So now I'm going to just do triangle 2 dot base equals 5, and then triangle 2 dot height equals 8 or something. Maybe I'll make it be a decimal. Maybe let's do 3, so I'll get a decimal area to make sure that that's working. Okay, and now I'm just going to print out the area. So I'm going to call sys out, and then I'm just going to call the name of my triangle, and then I'm going to call its get area method. Right, so you just use the name of the object dot whatever. Okay, and here I'm calling a method, right? That's why I have the parenthesis here, and these are just variables. So again, that's the difference. So I know I'm doing dot, and then I don't have parenthesis here, but that's because that's just a variable. To do the method, you do it just like this with its name and parenthesis. So there's the data again, and then the method. Okay, so I'm going to run this and see if I actually get my decimal area. Okay, and so kind of the cool part is you can start to build more features into a triangle. All right, so basically, if I go back into my triangle class, right now I have just a get area method, but I could also make one. This one's going to be kind of stupid, but I'm going to make a void one that says say hello, right? And you could just basically say, have it do whatever, sys out print, say hello, I am a triangle. Okay, we'll make it a friendly triangle. Say nice to meet you. Okay, and then maybe we'll just to make it a little bit different, we'll say my base is whatever plus the base, and I'm going to have access to that base variable because it's accessible in any of my methods inside this class. And then maybe I'll do one for height too. My height is plus the height. Okay, and so now that I've added this method, if I go back into my triangle runner, right, all my triangle objects can do that. Okay, so I'm going to do triangle 1 dot say hello. Okay, and that'll run the say hello method for triangle 1, right, which has this base and this height, right? If I did say triangle 2 dot say hello, that would do something different. Actually, I'd have to put it after I create triangle 2 down here, but anyways, so we'll see if I run that. It says hello, I'm a triangle, nice to meet you, and it says its base and height. Okay, and again, if I do that for triangle 2 has a different base and different height, so it's going to display different information there. Okay, so I know that's a little confusing, but the idea is you can build these different methods, things you want the triangle to do, like be able to get its area or say hello. Those are the different methods you put inside the triangle class. And then once you create an instance of it, you call that method to access it. Pretty confusing. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you for watching.